Alright, so I'm making a video about a 2001 Chevy Impala. It's a LS with a 3.8 liter V6. The only other variant was the 3.4, which seems like nonsense to me. Zero point 0.4 displacement difference. I don't know what the purpose of that was. Anyways, it's not a bad car. It's a good looking car, you know. It's got the fancy 5-star aluminum mag wheels on it. This is the leather interior, and I think this was a pretty popular color. It's a dark blue with a tan leather interior. The leather is very good quality. The rest of the car, electrically, is just a disaster. We initially had problems with this car. I borrowed it. It's my brother's car. I borrowed it one day, backed it up to the garage, came back out, turned the key. Nothing happened except for lights on the dash coming on. And I don't think this has anything to do with the battery being changed, because the car ran after the battery was changed several months before. So whether the two are related or not, somehow or another, I highly doubt it. But anywho, what we're dealing with is, no crank, no start. It's not no power. So we're not dealing with it anymore. Kinda. Anyways, everything that I've ever been able to come across, which is surprising that there's no solution to this problem. And there's all kinds of guesswork and suggestions and whatever. Most fingers are pointed at this thing right here. This is the body control module. As you can see, Motorola is responsible for this. And you see the number 104-45875. That part corresponds to this vehicle. I suppose they're different in the 3.4 liter ones. So anyways, this is just the casing. This is the inside. This is the PCB board. And this is where the 3 plugs plug into. And if you think that I'm kidding, there's the 3 plugs. Okay, so there's no body control module on this car. Now, from what I've come to understand, what this controls majorly is power door locks, the power windows, the reverse lights, the dash. Most of the dash, I'll show you in a second what works on that. But initially, when the car wouldn't start, and after doing some research, I found that this was supposed to be the culprit, this body control module. So I went to the salvage yard, I got another one, and then, that didn't solve the problem. So what I did instead was, what I found out when I opened up this one, this is the original one from this car, was that this component right here, this particular one, they're all the same. They all have the same number on them, and I know this because I have a microscope, and I was able to put it under there and identify them. Now, they do have an overfill coating on them to protect them from moisture. I don't know why the ceramic part of it does, but the whole board, you can feel it. It's coated. So, anyways, this particular one right here had a huge crater in it. And I figured, oh, there it is. That's the problem. We got a burnt, an exploded component. So I've got the equipment. I pulled this off the other board, put it on this one. Why did I do that? Well, because supposedly this and the PCM are paired together, which means that if you get a different one, whether it's got the same number or series of numbers, there's a couple of different numbers like this that you can use on this particular car. So without testing any other theories, I removed the component from the other board, removed the bad one from this one, put it on here. Everything was, that was great. But the only thing that this one controls, which I found out shortly after, was the power locks. The locks weren't working. You couldn't open or close from the switch. You couldn't use the key fob to lock the doors. You could arm the alarm system. So, anyways, as the theory goes, this is the culprit. This is why the car won't start, because this isn't sending out an appropriate, the correct voltage that the sensor on the ignition cylinder is supposed to send out. There's 3 wires, a yellow, black, and white. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know how people ever got turned on to the fact that this is the problem. I already showed you. There's the 3 plugs. It goes to this module. There's the key. I'm going to turn it on. Okay? Without the body control module, I'll show you. Here's the headlights. I'm switching it on and off. There's no dash lights. There's no exterior, there's no headlights. The fog lights don't work. The reverse lights don't work. You see the brake lights come on. The brake lights work. Let's see what else works. Oh, the blinkers. The blinkers work. You can see blinkers. You can hear the relay. Let's see if the emergency flashers work. You can see, I think. You can see back there they're flashing. You can see over here they're flashing. So now, as the theory has it, this car should not start. Well, surprise. Body control module, running car. Jesus. So, I mean, how come nobody else over almost a 20-year span hasn't been able to figure out what in the hell is wrong with this car? I mean, this is just the wackiest problem I've ever seen. And if GM is aware that there's a problem with their Passlock system, doesn't matter if it's the 1, 2, or the 3, doesn't matter if it's the VAT system in the older ones, this key does not have a resistor on it, okay? There's a sensor attached to this cylinder. You have to take the dash off. Isn't that complicated? But as far as I can tell, you don't need to do any of that, because it's got nothing to do with the ignition switch, the ignition cylinder. Doesn't have anything to do with the body control module. I don't know what it has to do with. All I know is that this car sat for months this last time around. This originally happened to me. I backed the car up to the garage, turned it off, came back out. Now, this never happened before. There was never any other issues with this car. I come back out, car won't crank. Everything electrically works, won't crank. So we pull it off onto the grass out of the way. And it sat there for a while. It started getting cold out. I'm out here. I got the whole dash apart. I'm cutting the yellow wire. I'm peeling back the casing on the black wire, going to the sensor on the ignition cylinder. I'm measuring the resistance between the 2 wires with the key in the on position. I get the resistor. I solder it in there. It didn't work. So I soldered the wires back, or the yellow wire back together. I, secured everything. I, put a heat shrink tube around the yellow wire where I cut it, and I wrapped the other one with electrical tape. And I don't know what I did. It just decided to start running again. Well, the starter decided to start working again. There's nothing wrong with the starter. If you go under the hood, there's a relay on the passenger side close to the wheel well in the firewall. Anyways, you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. I'm not going to go out there. It's freaking cold and I'm bare armed. So anyways, there's a crank relay. Now, if you take something and complete the circuit between the bottom left and the upper right contacts, well, not contacts, connectors in the fuse box, this goes directly to the starter. And you can verify that your starter is good by cranking it over. And even with me, with the key in and the on position, the car will start and run for about 3 seconds, then shuts off. So this was a pretty good indication to me that it was a security theft deterrent problem. That's all I keep reading is, oh, the car thinks it's being stolen, so it's disabling, the ability to start the car. Like, okay, so, and then it all comes back to the body control module. The body control module is bad. And if you get another one, you got to have it reprogrammed at the dealership, and it's going to cost you $500 or $600. I'm not saying people are lying. It's just a lot of confusion. And you can see the discoloration on the board a little bit there, especially some of that conformal coating kind of peeled off a little bit. But I had to put about, I don't know, I used 400 degrees Celsius from my hot air station in order to remove that component. So that's why the discoloration. But I'm going to take this back home tonight. I'm going to put it back under my microscope, and I'm going to go and I'm going to check every single one of these freaking things, all these capacitors, all the resistors, and I'm going to make sure that everything, that all their solder joints are solid. Because I went out to get some food, was scared to turn the car off because I was a good 5 miles away. And because as soon as I pulled into a parking space, the trunk release pops repeatedly. The brake light and the trunk were working together. Every time the brake light, let's see, does the brake light even come on anymore? Yeah, so there's your brake light, even though it doesn't even come on with the emergency brake foot pedal down there. So whatever. So everything was going bonkers. The doors were locking, unlocking. The lights on the bottom of the rearview mirror were flashing on and off. And when I got back here to the house, the headlights were flashing on and off. The fog lights were flashing on and off. Somebody probably thought I was trying to flag them down or something. I didn't even realize the lights were doing that. But anyways, so, I'm not making this up. And I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. It's the craziest freaking thing. I mean, I thought this car wasn't supposed to run without this thing. So why is it? I'll post this video on YouTube, and if it catches anybody's eye, strikes their curiosity a little bit, I'll put my Gmail address, and we can kind of just put our heads together and try to figure out what the problem is. There just isn't enough information out there. And with this day and age, I can't believe there isn't more. I've done Google searches. I've come up empty-handed. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, but it's just all false. And I know people are all the symptoms are pretty much the same, but it seems like there's different degrees of severity. But it's just crazy. And I don't understand why GM hasn't stepped up to the plate and said, hey, you know what? This is on us. I know it'd probably cost tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in recalls, but I mean, that's just the way it goes. You pump out a crap product, you should be held responsible for it. I don't think that's too much to ask. I mean, this isn't a bad car. So, and it definitely isn't ready for the junkyard, as you can see. It's I mean, there's literally no wear on these leather seats, for almost 20 years old. Anywho, so we'll see what happens next. Maybe I'll have to post another video.